Good morning, everyone. Welcome to this 2023 joint CESA presidential webinar between our Northwest and Limpopo branches. My name is Gamuketso Mekwa from Zutari, and I will be facilitating the discussion today at a difficult time in the country and at a time when the industry is in crisis. So we hope to get some wisdom from our speakers today and our panel of experts, and we hope to receive CESA's message for this year. I'll give you a quick overview of the speakers, but I'll give you an introduction of their bios as and when they come up. But firstly, a happy Women's Day to all the women out there. I hope there's a few of you on this call, and I hope you have a wonderful Women's Month. And I do hope that the speakers do touch on the issues relating to women in some aspects of their presentations today and the role that they play within the industry at a time when we're seeing a lot of women drop off and leave the industry. So I hope each of them will grant me this grace and slightly touch on the aspect of women in engineering in their presentations. But firstly, just to run through our program, we will first be getting branch chair remarks from our Limpopo branch chairperson, Mr. Lebu Mutabatsindi, who will touch on engineering skills, how we employ engineering skills and how we retain engineering skills. We will then get remarks from our Northwest branch chairperson, Mr. Boy Dandashe, who will also briefly discuss the business side of consulting engineering, of which procurement we know is a major issue. We will then get our CESA message from President Mr. Solwande, but it will be delivered by our CESA CEO, Mr. Chris Campbell. We then have our two guest speakers, who will today be Dr. Cornelius Reiters, CEO of Lepelle Northern Water, discussing issues, solutions, and opportunities at Limpopo Water. And last but not least, Mr. Spiso Diko, who is the Chief Director Buildings and Infrastructure at the Northwest Department of Public Works and Roads, and he will also discuss issues, solutions, opportunities at Northwest Public Works. We will then have a Q&A, and I do request for you to keep typing your questions in the Q&A keypad thing, and we'll take the questions during that time. But yes, first, welcome again. Let me introduce our first speaker, Mr. Lebu Mutabatsindi, who is our Limpopo branch chairperson. He's also the quality assurance manager at Muteo Consulting. Lebu is a chemical engineer and has experience in business. He's an experienced business development manager with a demonstrated history of working in mechanical and industrial engineering industries. He has an MBA from Wales University and a qualification in project management analysis from Queen's University in Canada. Welcome, Mr. Mutabatsindi. The floor is over to you.
Thank you very much, Gia. It's a privilege to be introduced. You know, Happy Women's Month, Happy Women's Day yesterday, and we're busy with other errands to prepare for the month of women. And thank you very much for such a privilege to be introduced. You know, it's nice. I feel good. I wish I was a woman for a change. But what I want to touch on is just the first thing is the joint session between Limpopo and Northwest, is that we opted to do this because then it becomes nicer. We tend to share a lot of skills. We tend to share also the learning parts of each and every organization or each and every speaker. And we also have more interaction with each other. So what I'm going to talk about is skills development. Skills development is one of the things that are highly important in the engineering field. What I will do, I'll draw up a parallel between student and company and how we navigate through that. And we'll talk also about retaining the students that we have trained. The challenge that we have in our industry is that because of the economic development issue, you'll find that a lot of companies have got less funds to train engineers. And with engineering, when you train less, you get less from an engineer because they are not exposed to how other companies are doing in terms of comparative of growing organization. So the first thing that we have to do when we develop a skills plan, we need to have a skills strategy. The first thing, training strategy where we'll compare the student and the company. What does the student have and what does the company needs? Then you do a gap analysis between the two and you say, fine, these are the requirements for the company. These are where the student is. What are the courses that we need to take from where the student is, from where the company needs that particular individual to be? And it needs to be a continuous process because once you do it once off, it hurts a lot because there is no much growing in terms of the industry. The second thing is you need to link up individual development with the commitment of money. Each and every company should have a commitment in terms of senior managers on the skills development area, where a senior manager makes sure that those students are mentored, which comes to the part of mentoring. So you need to assign a mentor to each and every trainee that you have. It might be a fully developed person, or you might be having students from tertiary institutions that they need to be developed. So they need to have a mentor. And mentoring is one of the most important things. In the last talks, we talked about matching a mentor and a mentee. There should be a very symbiotic relationship where you find that a mentee respects the mentor. If a mentee doesn't respect the mentor, then your skills development goes off the tray because you'll find that there is no respect in them in terms of what that particular mentee wants, an individual. Also, the commitment from the side of the mentors is that they need to have time for each and every mentee separately and develop them as an individual. Learn to understand who they are, learn to understand their personal traits on individual basis. You can't just treat them the same. So once you have done that, you have ascertained that, then you need to have the suitable training that is required. So as a mentor, you need to check which companies are giving the training that is accredited to what you're doing. And mostly CESA have got a lot of those particular trainings subjects that we're talking about. If it's finance, it's very important that each and every engineer knows how to deal with finance. And also, the senior manager should, or the mentor should provide the budget for that particular training. If you've got a mentee, you've got a lot of mentees, which unless a company don't have a budget, it's a problem because you're not going to implement any training. And at the end of the day, there is a development program that is required so that it's accountable, the skills development part, to say that each and every trainee has been going through a course. So in our situation, we always say that each and every engineer or every employee must do one course a year that subscribes to whatever within the field of their expertise. And the other thing again is to identify the beneficiaries of training and saying and checking also within the departments. When a mentee has done a course in terms of skills training, you have to let them come back and present what they've learned to colleagues. You'll find that if we're talking about Excel, there are some new techniques of dealing with Excel that have been developed, that they've learned. And then when we share, the whole company grows and we tend to gain. And also we need to make sure that as senior managers, we've got a training committee that complies with WSP and with the CETA sector. So let me just come up with the problems that we normally have in organizations that blocks the training. I'm just highlighting a few things because of time. It's quite a lengthy talk on the skills development. If you've got lack of commitment from the management and the support of training at general, then your training skills development is going to collapse. And financial constraints, that means the cost of training each and every employee, the budget. As an organization, you need to have that particular budget. And if you've got financial constraints, that means that your training is going to collapse. The actual or perceived impact on production for the duration of the training, because employees are not at their workstation. For example, if a person is attending a course, you've got a tender to be submitted, or you've got certain plans of drawings that they have to be submitted. You need to take in consideration that you might need your mentee to work overtime to compensate for the time when they've been in training. So it's not always a straight cut where if you can get people who are going to say, no, I've been in training, so I can't do my work, then it impedes the skills development. Resistance from supervisors. You'll find that we always encourage that a mentee should be reporting directly to the mentor in most of the situations. But in other scenarios, we'll find that the mentor is on a different department altogether. But if then the supervisor of the mentee doesn't understand or doesn't let the person to get time off, then it will become a problem because you'll find that it's blocked within internally. And if there is no formal assessment in the mechanism in place, your training development is going to fall off. You need to have formal mechanism of assessment. And you need, if there is no culture in an organization also of training, you lose it completely because each and every intervention that you try to come up with is like it's new, you have to start afresh, you don't have a culture of training people. So it's important. So those are the problems that I will say, reluctance also for people to change in terms of culture boundaries and number of things, where you'll find that somebody will say, no, because I'm white, I'm not going to be mentored by a black engineer. We need to transcend above color boundary and all those racial impacts. And we must avoid favoritism because if you have favoritism in the company, you find that only few people get trained or only few people get development in a company. And that is not the correct thing. And also when employees start demanding to be trained, then it becomes a challenge. because they will start confusing you to say, now they want to be trained. That means you're not doing the right thing. So you need to have principles and strategies on the floor to say, these are the activities that we need to do. Why do we need to have skills development in our arena? Firstly, South Africa, we have very challenged as engineers, so that we have got ethics. I know this is one of the things that we've been talking about in terms of ethics. I wish each and every engineer could go through the ethics of being an engineer, and also to be registered or to be a PR eng. It's very, very important. So if on our training, on our skills development, we need to be going so that they can be having a PR recognition in their span of life. So in the last departing shot, I can see my time is up. A last departing shot is that each and every person that we try to train, we need to have a specific time of them reaching their goals of, it's either PR, being a PR in all the fields, whether it's a technologist, technician, or a PR eng as an engineer, but they need to be specific timelines that needs to be reached. And thank you very much, Kia. I hope we'll cover some of the things on the Q&A as time will be allowed. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Mutabatsindi. And I think the essence of your discussion today is just to summarize what you spoke about. I think what I got from it, train less, you get less, and that's the importance of continuous development in your in your profession. The importance of mentoring, have a training strategy, find the gaps in terms of the mentoring needs that your employees do need, the importance of individual development and mentoring, and that relationship that you need to have with your mentor so that they understand your requirements in terms of the training gaps that you have, but also just some of the barriers that you touched on with regards to the resistance of some managers to want to train, which could possibly emanate from the fact that there's a skills filler that would need to be put in place if a person wants to go on training, which again says that we need more skills in that particular area, but also the financial constraints which companies tend to have. Overall, an important message if we want to continue the culture of creating an industry that is up to date with the latest developments and also at the forefront of the engineering industry. Thank you so much for that message. Our next speaker will be Mr. Boy Dandashe. He will be talking about the business of consulting engineering, and again, of which procurement is a major issue. Mr. Dandashe is the CESA Northwest Chairperson and Managing Director of Lotepe Development Engineers. Mr. Dandashe is a professional engineering technologist. He has 38 years experience working in both the public and private sector, and he is the founding member and managing member of Lotepe Development Engineers. Mr. Dandashe, the floor is yours.
Good morning, colleagues. Thank you very much, Kia.
Sorry for interrupting. Can you please turn on your video?
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I'm going to touch the issue of business, our business, but mainly on the part of the of procurement, because that's the area that we as consulting engineers, we depend on. Firstly, I'll touch the issue of the legislation. I'm not going to talk about the acts or anything related to that, but I'll touch a few things that government or lawmakers are doing. As much as we are aware, lawmakers are working tirelessly to develop the procurement framework that provides amongst other things, for fair, equitable, transparent, and competitive and cost-effective procurement, which is supposed to be done by organs of state or other institutions that have been identified. For example, 2 months ago, there was a bill, the public procurement bill, which was introduced in the National Assembly. And its aim is to create a single framework to regulate public procurement by all state organs. Because we had several fragmented procurement acts, which could not really be, even as consultant, we could not raise any complaint based on the fact that you'd be appointed with a different procurement act. But with that, I think we are aware that government is doing its best, and especially lawmakers, because when I say government, it also includes its national, provincial, and local government. And I think there are areas that we have challenges. There are a few challenges that the implementation of this of the existing legislation is one of the greatest area where organs of states are failing. And when you look at that and you look at the legislation is clear, but we've got a human factor in most of the time that affects implementation negatively. And amongst other things, this includes lack of proper knowledge. I'm not sure whether the interpretation is not right for the people who are supposed to be doing that, but lack of knowledge, the impact of if you appoint wrong, what would happen? And then on some cases, non-compliance of national treasury policies and regulations, which are there, which are supposed to be followed. Inadequate planning, because some of the projects are decided today and then tomorrow they want them to be implemented. And you then decide to procure a service from a service provider and without enough planning. And then there's lack of accountability. Even the appointment, if it's wrong, nobody takes responsibility for that. And then the issue of lack of ethics, fraud and corruption. This is one of the major things that are making are creating these challenges. And then this in turn affects infrastructure delivery goals. Infrastructure delivery programs are mainly delayed. We are aware that because I'm staying in the Northwest, so I'm clued up with most of the things that are happening in this site. But you'd find that a municipality has a budget of 40 million, but they can't spend even a cent out of that, based on the fact of issues related to procurement. Infrastructure projects are not completed because friends are appointed or incompetent or unresourced companies are appointed. And then in most cases, what happens? Funding is returned to Treasury. For the past 3 years, I think we are all aware, these are public knowledge, that 100 millions of rands have been returned from this province. And the major problem is selective or subjective appointments. And these selective and subjective appointments are pushes mainly the procurement committees to appoint non-compliant tenderers. And it's always the case, it's always a difficulty. And most of the companies that are there do not have any work. Some would remember that at one point, our premier said there are no consulting engineers in the Northwest. Because that's why the 400 million was returned to Treasury. So these are some of the things that we need to look at, and issues of people who procure should be able to avoid. But the solutions, among other things, would be to empower staff or committees responsible for procurement of services. The unfortunate part is you find that within the setup of, the setup of government, you'd find in most cases, municipalities specifically, individuals are incorporated into these committees without being trained. So it's important that training and mentoring of these individuals before they even are appointed into those committees. The other issue is the solution would be to ensure compliance. What's required by the tender or by the specification of procurement should also comply with what is submitted at the time of procurement of a particular service and the data quality. So it's important to look at those. And then the other issue is supplier diversification. You find that why money is not spent, it's because there are certain suppliers or there are certain consultants that are used only year in, year out. So if government or organs of states start to diversify, look at if this is mechanical, it's done by mechanical, electrical, and civil engineering. Those are things that they have to have that particular database and be able to know that we can be able to do this. Our development goals. Increasing efficiency through, 4IR, it's one of the things that is in. So if organs of state start to increase their efficiency by digitizing their procurement system at one point or another, though we know it's controlled by people, but it would, I think it would improve. And the last thing is transparency, which is one of the most important things. And if these solutions can be implemented, as I said, among other issues that are required, then when a client appoints an engineer, would be knowing that this engineer has capacity. This consultant can also deliver a project on time, on budget. And then the client would also know that on appointing of a professional engineering or professional company, it would be good, that client would also be appointing a professional advisor and a partner who can then be able to implement whatever infrastructure is required. And this can also contribute to employment stats, especially of young engineers. Libu was saying we need money to be able to train young professionals. and it cannot happen without having any sort of work, because skills, it's not like you're sitting in a classroom where you are taught, but skills goes with doing work physically, whether design, planning, or any other issue that relates to infrastructure development. So it would also increase that employment stats, because with more work, we're able to employ more people. And for example, we've got CESA, which has about 500 member firms throughout South Africa. You can imagine if all those firms are doing work, then we are sure that employment would be there and young professionals will be trained, which would impact positively on our human capital and also on the process of transformation. So procurement is the key to everything that we do. And then the issue of creation of local work opportunities, it would be an opportunity for that particular organ of state. And then local consulting engineering businesses would grow and then also contribute to the local economy. That's why in most cases they say infrastructure, it's an economic facilitating process. So it's important to look at those. I think I think I covered most of the things. I'm still within my 7 minutes, but I think most of the things we can discuss after, if there are any questions related to this.
We definitely will. We definitely will. Thank you so much, Mr. Tandashe. And procurement is indeed the key to unlocking infrastructure delivery. Just to touch on some of the things that you mentioned, we obviously do have a country, we are in a country of excellent laws, but implementation that is lacking. We have an issue of non-compliance and a huge problem with regards to ethics, which I'm hoping you can touch on in the question and answer session, especially in addressing how companies can possibly start looking to return to the Northwest. Because we know that a lot of companies have pulled out of the Northwest because of the constraints to procurement. But thank you very much. That's an important message. We hope to get questions on it in our question and answer session. I'm going to jump on to our next speaker. Thank you, Mr. Tandashe. We have our CESA message, which will be delivered, like I said, by our CESA CEO, Mr. Chris Campbell. Chris, I'm hoping you are ready to deliver our message.
Yeah, I certainly am.
Thank you.
So thank you, Kia, our facilitator, program director. And once again, thank you to Levu, branch chair for Limpopo, and Boy, branch chair for the Northwest. It's indeed an honor and a privilege for me to be delivering this address on behalf of our president, Olu Soluwade, who unfortunately had a pressing engagement and was not able to do this delivery himself. I've even worn my flowers so I can look a little bit like our president. So without further ado, consistent with the message that you would have heard from both our two brief speakers, my task is to share with you the broader perspective on how do we arrive at solutions to these challenges that we face. And it will be under the banner of make a difference by collaborating for change. So good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and esteemed guests. Thank you for joining us today. And this is indeed is a theme and focus that we've had for the year, making a difference by collaborating for change. And, at the same time, we also need to provide a little bit of a review of some of our achievements of the past year, and of course, our hopes for the future. So in 2022, those of you who have good memories may recall that it was a call to service, a resounding call to service. And during this period, we called on our members and industry stakeholders to serve and work together as a team with a common goal and focus. And the 4 key areas we emphasized were to be available, the availability to serve, the willingness to serve, understanding that it was a sacrifice, of course, but of course, never losing sight of the fact that we share a vision for the future. And so in this new year, we've delved deeper into actualizing this call to service through the call to collaborate for change and ensuring, of course, that we can work effectively towards this common goal. And to do so, I'm just going to share with you a brief clip.
The pursuit of excellence, the promotion of integrity, the passion for engineering, the proponent for education, the potential for innovation, the power of technology, the perseverance for transformation, the pride of our industry. 70 years ago, in Kelvin House, close to Johannesburg, 2 consulting engineers with a vision and a passion for our industry met. This was set to be the foundation of an organization that today proudly represents close to 600 member firms, employing in excess of 17,000 people, working together to protect people's lives and livelihoods. We acknowledge the support of everyone who has been part of our remarkable and enduring history of contributing to the representation and development of the all-important engineering sector. We celebrate you, our members, who have made the success of our organization a reality. We salute our partners, affiliates, and stakeholders for supporting us in our journey to becoming the apex organization for the consulting engineering industry in the country, across the continent, and more recently, the world. We applaud those of you who have given of your valuable time and resources to advocate and ensure the sustainability of our profession. But most of all, we celebrate you, our members, who operate with professionalism, integrity, and ethics as we work towards building an equitable society for all. This celebration is for you, our members, who have given us your unwavering support over the past 7 decades in our pursuit of engineering excellence as we protect the lives and livelihoods of the people of our magnificent country. And we have much to celebrate.
Indeed, certainly it goes without saying that we do have much to celebrate, but we still need to continue on how we make a difference by collaborating for change. And so to share with you, our president of the country, of course, Cyril Ramaphosa, during his State of the Nation address, highlighted the country's most important priority areas, those being tackling the energy crisis, improving service delivery, combating crime and corruption. And there was also, as many of us have become aware, the need to be driving a professionalizing of the public service, where of course CESA has been instrumental in providing inputs into that specific framework document, which had been published during 2022. Of course, CESA wholeheartedly supports government's focus on professionalizing the state, and there needs to be a drive to professionalize the private sector as well, so that we raise competency levels in all spheres of our society. So maybe a look into the rearview mirror. Let's see what CESA has thus far achieved as we commence with looking forward. Let me first iterate the role of an industry organization such as CESA. And in a nutshell, our mandate is to lobby for positive change within the regulatory environment to enable our members to better serve society. And to this end, in 2022, as an industry organization, we have made such progress, and some of the notable achievements has been actually receiving responses and action on the part of the Auditor General's Office in dealing with the municipalities with one of the challenges amongst many others of simply overcharging for tender documents. All the more so when these are available electronically. So at least, you know, in one significant entity, our voice is being heard. The following, which I will share with you, is actually a list of focus areas which we believe as industry association, we can most certainly make a difference. Under the banner of the engineering profession, that comes in the guise of the professionalizing of the public sector and the public service. CESA was part of the task team appointed through the Ministry of Public Service and Administration. The consulting engineering environment is yet another area. And maybe I should rattle the list off first before I go into detail. And that list there, as you can see, and probably because this is a visual at the same time, I'm not going to go through it and read it word by word. I do believe we will have the level of literacy to be able to do so. It's also more a case of the message rather than the death by PowerPoint. So there are these areas, the resilience of our infrastructure, our next generation of torch bearers. What difference do we make in respect of our people and our nation? And, you know, to the old expression, where does charity begin? Begins at home. So to share with you, for example, is that our industry continues to produce the engineering excellence as was showcased in last year's, our 50th anniversary, CESA Aeon Engineering Excellence Awards. And those of you who have not purchased the table, there may be an opportunity still to do so. We are hosting the 51st version of this awards at Voda World in Midrand next week on the 16th of August. And it will be yet another opportunity for our members to showcase the excellence and for clients of our members to be a part of that celebration. Through our School of Consulting Engineering, we continue to grow from strength to strength, offering over 100 CPD courses. And these are the uptake we found to be cross-cutting: members, clients, industry stakeholders. And worth noting remains our flagship acclaimed management development program, which we've called the Business of Consulting Engineering Management Development Program, through which we've trained over 100 engineering practitioners as leaders in our industry. In my opinion, one of the better methods that can be utilized for accelerating the development and fast-tracking your road to professional registration, indeed. And then if we look at the consulting engineering environment itself, we are concerned as there is much work to be done. Through our advocacy efforts, we have seen some differences coming through. CESA, by virtue of being a member of Business Unity South Africa and its CEO, being recognized enough to serve on the board of BUSA, was intimately involved in the NEDLAC process through 2022 on exactly what our branch chair for the Northwest mentioned, the new public procurement bill. And one, of course, hopes that the success of parliamentary processes will support absolute need to differentiate procurement processes for infrastructure delivery for that of general goods and services. As we speak, I have no doubt that that remains. It has been one of the successful differences that was brought to that process through CESA's hard work, and it would appear that there is a strong recognition for how one should differentiate between procurement processes as they apply to strategic goods and services, infrastructure being one of them, and others, toll trains or trains that shouldn't be too tall, and those kind of strategic procurement processes versus general goods and services like ballpoint pens, tea, and coffee. And then we need to also ensure through this process, and it exists in this legislation, value for money perspective, so that it doesn't get lost in what was, and up to this point still is, the downward spiral created by the notion of least cost. Because within that pursuit is the compromise, arguably, of quality. I think it goes without saying, there's a nice Afrikaans expression, which I shall not share, but often when you assume you've bought something cheaply, it could turn out to be the most expensive. So it is true then that cheap simply does not last. And in infrastructure specifically, we do run the risk of putting not only the infrastructure and the investment at stake, but also lives and livelihoods of people. Now, it doesn't seem to be a well-known fact, but it is true that when you look at the life cycle costs of infrastructure, not necessarily a project per se, but the infrastructure starts with the planning, the design, then you go into construction phase, and then you go into the operation and maintenance. In that life cycle, the owner at the end becomes the entity who had invited the bids, the client. They own and operate it. Yet, counterintuitively, we've continued to, at the planning and design stage, assume that the job is done by virtue of saving money on the cost of the professional insight that you hope to get, when that really is only 2% of the life cycle costs of the ownership, which is over a 30 to 40-year period. Because if you do the arithmetic, the next 10% goes in construction, that's 12% gone. That means that 88% of the cost of ownership sits in operation and maintenance. And guess what? That sits with the client. And so we need to be looking at how can you save the client money on that 88% by ensuring you get the right quality through that 2% and the other 10% process. It goes therefore without saying that one needs to consider that value for money perspective. And I think it's worth asking the question of, in the bigger economic conversation of our country, and if we're going to make structural changes in our processes, is it appropriate at service delivery levels for your supply chain to be completely separate from the service delivery? And should they not be integrated and managed through the operations and not by finance? Because the argument then is that the finance look at the money side of things and do not concern themselves with the output and the end product. Yet the service delivery is responsible for that end product on an ongoing basis beyond that point. And it's financial management counterintuitively, because if you can save money through less intensive needs for operation challenges and maintenance, you will have saved money in your budget on an ongoing basis over the 30 years, and not over the short period where you've commissioned the services of your consulting engineering companies. Another success I'd like to for us to consider is how we have achieved, through our contractual affairs department, a huge number of queries which come from both members and their clients. And we are able to provide the insight to help resolve the impasses or the misunderstanding between the parties, without the need to absolutely then go to conciliation or even to go legal. On another matter, coming back just very briefly to the least cost, is internationally there's a standard, the ISO 10845 standard, and you are welcome to Google that. I can assure you that nowhere would you find a statement that talks about least cost being encouraged. Simply because cost in isolation is dangerous when procuring strategic goods such as infrastructure, as there are far too many technical unknowns. Furthermore, and I think this is where the greatest misunderstanding comes, is that our Constitution, wonderful foresight from our forefathers, and some of them still being around, is Section 207 in our Constitution says cost effective. Nowhere does it say least cost. So we need to ask ourselves, what is the price that we are going to be paid through pursuing the least cost route when procuring our infrastructure? We believe, of course, that a lot more needs to be done to bolster the knowledge and capacity and understanding and the cross-functional working between our supply chain, procurement, and the technical teams. Let me share with you another area, which I had in the list earlier shared with you, the funders and developers. A huge issue plaguing our infrastructure efforts, both in public and private sector, is the prominence of corruption, which if we don't root this out, we are not going to win at this game. And certainly what there needs to be a greater understanding of is that we have a responsibility as a collective to be addressing the challenges we have as a society. And if infrastructure is going to be that vehicle, then we should get that show on the road. And if, as we are at this point in time, our economy has literally flatlined, we have no growth, we do not have enough money to be funding all of these necessary economic infrastructure and social infrastructure requirements, there needs to be a healthy partnership, therefore, between government and the private sector. Government will not have the money and doesn't have the capacity to go it alone. And so the partnership with the private sector becomes essential. And when we do rebuild, excuse me, we need to consider how do we build back better? And that is going to be through the resilience in our infrastructure. I think many of us may, at this point in time, still be in denial over the realities of climate change, our frequent heavy storms, freak weather, serious heat waves. We may be in South Africa, our summer is yet to come, but those of us who have been following the news would have seen what has been the impact in Europe of climate change, the excessive heat waves. And those of us also in the areas of Johannesburg and surrounds and Gauteng, I don't think it's an absolute complete accident of nature where at 2 a.m. in the morning, your bed starts shaking. Those are phenomena which we've not really experienced. And should they become more significant and catastrophic, then we do need to consider how do we need to put in more resilience into our infrastructure. And I think therein lies the opportunity. When we do build back better, we must enable sustainable and quality infrastructure. And we need to keep in mind the entire process and ensure that the starting point is right. At the simplest of levels, civil engineers, for example, will appreciate the fact that your pipe sizing that you had designed for your stormwater as a minimum may not be the best idea. It could be cheaper, but is it sustainable? Is it not going to get clogged, blocked up because we have certain realities in our society? And so your maintenance intensivity is much higher, your costs are higher. Our green buildings, wonderful buildings, lots and lots of glass. And much as we develop the green buildings in that perspective, how do we ensure that the radiation of heat coming into those buildings is managed adequately without needing to quadruple on our air conditioning requirements, which I guess has an equally significant impact on the carbon footprint that we generate. So therefore, I ask you then as leaders, not only in the 2 provinces, as we have in our title, but anyone else, wherever you may be, is are we building sustainable infrastructure that's built to stand the test of time? Are we adapting our infrastructure to withstand climate change? Do we truly understand the legacy of our current infrastructure in order to best adapt new approaches to its development? The old standards are not bad, but need they be slightly modified? I'm sure there may be room for that too. And do we understand the critical need to invest not only in our new infrastructure, but in the critical maintenance of our existing infrastructure, simply because we don't have the money to build everything back anew. So it becomes equally important that we address this shortfall in maintenance, looking after what we have, so that it doesn't become what we had. And now we need to find a whole lot of money, which are not going to be easy to find, simply because of where we find ourselves as a country, policy uncertainty, political uncertainty, crime and corruption, and all of the above. And of course, we are mindful of the fact that in our specific provincial areas, Limpopo, Northwest, these may be even more prevalent than in some of others. I think there's the levels of dire circumstances. I don't think we all are at the same point of decay. And of course, in these particular provinces, the challenges encompass roads, water supply, education facilities, and sanitation. I think just recently, those of you who watch Carte Blanche might have seen just the simple neglect of repairing sanitation pipes, outlets, that has caused leaching into the subsoil areas and significant sinkholes. People have unnecessarily so lost their houses. In Limpopo, the province gravels with substantial infrastructure challenges, of course. These range from our road networks, the schools, which I think many of us may recall. A lot of those buildings were satellite. We still don't know why. And then, of course, the delaying of surfacing of roads, such as in the 22-kilometer stretch in Malemati and Maraleleng, is just an example of the struggle for us to get the basic services right. The transit time on an unsurfaced road, the safety of the public on an unsurfaced road cannot be compared to that of what difference a surfaced road would make. Of schools, the prevalence of pit toilets, so many years into our democracy, or unsafe pit toilets, which could easily have been addressed through other mechanisms if providing waterborne sanitation was not possible. Why have we not migrated to those safer mechanisms? In the Northwest Province, similar service delivery, water supply, the lack of proper sewage and water systems in places like, just one example, a microcosm, Sunnyzof, or even the issues around water supply, which have caused industries to relocate from that province to others, where there's a significant knock-on effect to communities, livelihoods, in respect of employment. So, one needs to look at these from a holistic and a systemic perspective, and not simply just on what is the, so what if the infrastructure is not working? It matters. It matters because of that knock-on effect. And this is where the public-private partnerships and community collaboration has to play a role in turning this tide to foster sustainable growth in the Northwest Province, and not uniquely, but just as one area where the need exists nationally. And so to tackle these pressing challenges, it's imperative for client bodies to start by engaging reputable consulting firms and construction companies with a track record of delivering high-quality infrastructure. You might have employed the consulting company, but if you make the same mistake and think that you're going to appoint a fly-by-night construction company, consider the knock-on effect when that company doesn't deliver. How does that set back the program of delivering services to communities? This is where we believe CESA and its member firms can play a pivotal role in this endeavor, collaborating closely with the public sector to drive this positive change. We need to consider how might we leverage the expertise through the partnership that we foster between public and private sector. Going to our nation, to which I've alluded earlier, our current water and energy challenges are stretching our resilience to the maximum. In addition, we face challenges with transport systems, our rail, for example. And in fact, we talk broadly about transport systems, but if you consider the fact that if your rail doesn't function adequately, you've got so many more vehicles, so many more heavy trucks on the road. Were those roads designed to sustain that level of traffic intensity? Answer is no. Are we accelerating the lifespan or accelerating the deterioration of those roads? Yes, we are. And so we need to be mindful of how one affects the other. And so we need to look at cause and effect and address causes and fix those as well. This is where our transport and then if our healthcare systems, if we don't have adequate facilities, you've got no way to treat your patients. And then if we don't have, if we're still finding ourselves having to have pit latrines at schools or classrooms under trees, does that make for a conducive learning environment? So it's important then that if we look at where we are, consider how might we going forward and focusing on our next generation torchbearers. How do we continue to enable the development of homegrown engineering skills sustainably and systemically for a transformed society and a transformed industry? I would hasten to say, certainly not by sending a whole lot of students to Russia and hope that they're going to come back and they know a lot of things in engineering, or to Cuba. Much as those are good political exchanges, etc., we've got to make sure that those particular learners who've gone off and will have invested their own time in embarking on those studies and those degrees, indeed find that they are equivalent to what our standard requires. And this is where we need this collaborative effort between the public and private sectors, where we collectively promote STEM-based education. Whereas CESA, we continue to support the journey of young graduates and our member firms. Indeed, we want to encourage more, if not all, to continue availing their opportunities for in-service training, to create an attractive environment for our young graduates. So this begs the question, how do we compete globally and develop engineers in South Africa? And the answer very simply is we need to begin at home. We begin at home by embarking on partnerships at basic education levels, through Protec, through NSTF, through Nzalo Careers, to name but a few, so that we have the learners coming through high school, getting into these careers. And I think it would be remiss of me if I didn't share with you very briefly a video clip, which we have flighted previously, as I begin to wrap.
Papa, my teacher says that more people's lives are saved by engineers than doctors. Is that true?
Yes. Engineers develop the cities we live in, the roads we travel, the systems that keep our lights on, our water safe to drink, and even the hospitals we go to when we are sick.
My teacher says you have to be just as clever to be an engineer as to be a doctor, and to be a consulting engineer takes as long as becoming a doctor.
How? Your teacher is very clever. If you want to be good at sport or music, it takes practice. It's the same for maths. Everyone can be good at it, and it's so much fun.
CESA, protecting lives and livelihoods.
So this is CESA's contribution in making a difference. We unashamedly would express a commitment and passion to be of service and make that difference. And we call on all our social partners, government, trade unions, communities, to commit to this a similar vision. And certainly let us, through government and private sector, increase informed spending on infrastructure as key economic drivers, but also to address the social needs of our communities. We need to collaborate by getting everyone involved, as it's the only way that we will be able to make a difference as an industry, as engineers, and as citizens of this, our beloved country. Nkosi Sikeleli, Africa. Raise high her glory. Sechaba sa, South Africa. Protect our nation. God bless us as a nation and an industry. I thank you for listening.
Thank you so much, Chris, and thank you for this message from CESA. We have indeed seen in recent years the effects of climate change on our infrastructure and the importance of resilient infrastructure. We celebrate the achievements of the engineering industry, and it's really firms such as the ones that are on the call. It's firms that do submit their works to platforms such as the CESA Aon Excellence Awards, which are taking place on the 16th of August, to recognize the impact that the engineering industry has on infrastructure delivery. Just out of interest, there has been an increase in foreign direct investment by about 4% in developing economies. And although there has been this investment, it's largely towards greenfields projects. And I like the fact that you raised the importance of maintaining our infrastructure throughout its life cycle, because there needs to be more funds directed towards the sustainability of the infrastructure that we already have. It's also important to note that there are platforms such as the School of Consulting Engineering, which continue to grow. They offer accredited courses for the continuous development of professionals, and also for just continuous professional development, and also obviously the development of young professionals. Thank you. This is an important message, and I hope that everybody took away something from the CESA message for this year. We are going to jump onto our next speaker, and I am mindful of time, so I'm going to ask our guest speakers to not take too long, keep to your time slot. Our following speaker is Dr. Reuters, and he is the Chief Executive Officer of Lepelle Northern Water, bulk water supply in Limpopo. Dr. Reuters holds a degree in Science and Engineering and Business Administration from the Universities of Western Cape, Witwatersrand, Pretoria, and South Africa, respectively. He has also completed a PhD and research through San Diego State University in California. He is a registered professional natural scientist and civil engineer who's been actively working in academic, private, and public sectors. He boasts an extensive record of approximately 300 citations. That's really impressive, and holds more than 50 publications in the fields of science and engineering. Dr. Reuters is an avid photographer and traveler and has a keen interest in sports and reads widely on varying topics, including science, technology, business, finance, and leadership. I hope you're as excited as I am to hear what he has in store for us today. Thank you, Dr. Reuters.
Good afternoon, everybody. Good afternoon, Program Director. I hope you can hear me, and I hope that you can see my presentation on the screen.
Loud and clear. Yes, we can.
Thank you. I will take off where Chris Campbell started, or where he finished, but also to start off by acknowledging women in the field of engineering in this Women's Month, and specifically Women's Day has been celebrated. Although in the field of engineering, it's still the challenges that we have in terms of gender representativity, specifically in the civil engineering field. But I think that we as a country, we are moving forward in terms of this particular aspect that we need to be. So what I would talk this afternoon is that how do we really make a difference in collaborating for change? What is our expectations and this strategic priority from the view and a perspective of a service delivery orientated organization such as Lepelle Northern Water, and in terms of a constitutional obligation on water supply. And this is one of the aspects that a lot of people hear, and then I like the clip that was playing, that engineers have saved more lives than to the extent of medical doctors. And engineers have also designed most of the equipment for doctors, what they use. So let me then say by that, I'm just going to go quick, but I will be from a perspective also questions to that, but also to highlight in terms of the challenges and the risks that what Mr. Boy Dambashi was also indicated. And I just want to, in terms of these main aspects, and in terms of where do we take an organization that is really been at the wrong end of the issues in South Africa, to take it forward, where we have had major challenges with regard to service delivery, and also the issues of fraud and corruption. This, as we know, that Lepelle is a water services provider, water availability and the allocation, it mostly operates within a rural province of South Africa, and therefore it makes even more challenging, and it is one of the provinces with the lowest access to basic services in terms of the latest stats, SA surveys. Now, how do we change that in terms of societal expectations, the challenges that are there for change, and take it and professionalize it in terms of the aspects that has been, all we know that the president is very passionate about us. How do we professionalize the public service, be really to be an informed client and not being telling what to do. Challenges of facing the changes. What are the strategic priorities that are out there? The type of institutions that we need. Not only the physical institution or the physical infrastructure or institutions, but we need also the soft ones, the institutions that must make sure that things are happening. And how do we go forward? I'm not going to go through all of this in terms of what Lepelle is all about, but what is important is that to say an institution under the Water Services Act of 1997 provides for the rights of access to basic water and sanitation, and also to provide for the regulatory frameworks for water services institutions. And specifically, the get our resources from South Africa is very constrained in terms of our resources, or water resources. And that is one of the major challenges and risk in terms of the resilience for our infrastructure. How do we have a plan for that? How we have designed for that, getting it for, and these are the main issues in terms of the raw water resources, the olifants, the bladder, the Letaba, and then the Lavuvu system. And we're serving mostly rural municipalities with major problems. And also the hit, you need to make sure that communities receive the quality water in terms of sandstone. For one, as any citizen in South Africa, whether you live in Johannesburg, whether you lived in Kabeja, whether in eThekwini, Cape Town, the same must be in terms of what is being required of us. And specifically, this makes it more challenging. And how do you work with water services authorities where the capacity is lacking, where the capabilities are not there, and how do you have to make sure that you overcome the challenges that are there? But also on the other hand, the opportunities are there within this particular province and in the Northwest, that we are rich in natural resources. Mining is particular, one of the bigger contributors to the economy in this province, in these provinces, but also into South Africa. And therefore, we also work with the mines in terms of the water supply. I'm not going to go through the primary activities. The secondary activities is much more in terms of the softer part of the institutions. How do you make sure that your project management is right? How do you make sure that you have the capable staff, that the institutions are there to cooperate, and that you have the capabilities that are there? And then, as I've indicated, how do you provide the necessary product to your clients? And then the other aspect is that the management of our catchments, the water services, if you want to have quality water, the major impact on our catchments is of a huge concern in terms of the issues that South Africa is facing, and how do you make sure that you have integrated catchment management, but also the overall aspect of integrated water management in South Africa. And then also, how do you make sure that there is joint ventures not only with regard to public, but also public to private. And that is one of the aspects that is of an importance, that what you have. And then how do one have to look in terms of the water demand and also the aspects of water conservation and demand management. One of the biggest challenges within South Africa, and that is we are using more than the world average, where the world average in terms of water consumption is plus minus 157, whereas in South Africa is 245 cubic meters per person per day. So that is one of the major issues where we have a restrained resource, but yet there is a disregard in terms of for its value and undervalue. The area of our operations, this is in terms of where we are, in terms of the current operations, as I've indicated, mostly within the Mopani district municipality, the Sekhukhune district municipality, and then also in the Capricorn district municipality, and also in Vembe district municipality, the far northern part of South Africa, in terms of also the gateway to Africa. And also in terms of the reconfiguration is that we're now going to take over the Waterberg district municipality that previously been done to an extent by Magali's Water, but the minister, in terms of the reconfiguration, it's now to make sure that the water board is responsible for all the water supply within the province of Limpopo. Of specific on this map is that in the Sekhukhune district, you've got high mining activities in terms of specifically within the Elias Matsuledi. You have also in terms of your Greater Tabatsi, that has now been designated as a special economic zone. So is your Masina Makado special economic zone in terms of the resources and that. is one of the issues that the province is now focusing in terms of how do we make sure that we have the kind of water resources for the economic growth of this province, but also for South Africa in general. And then also in the Lowveld, specifically round about in Phalaborwa municipalities, you have the high mining in terms of phosphate and other activities. So these are the biggest schemes that what we have within the province. So the areas of supply I've already indicated. We are currently providing about 41% of the mandate of the 80,000 square kilometers, which is equivalent to 70% of Limpopo being serviced. And then also we're looking in terms of that to be reconfigured, as I've already indicated, and due diligence. I'm just not going to go much in detail here. We just have more than 1.6 million households of a 6 million population, and that by itself need the kind of technical skills and capabilities to make sure that we provide the resources within this particular province. I have touched on this, and one of the aspects is specifically you've got major water availability constraints within the Vhembe district, and to the extent of also of the Waterberg district, but only on terms of the escarpment, where you do have, and that you have to move water over long distances. And for an example, is that over 80 kilometers we have to provide water from the Olifant system just to Polokwane, the capital of Limpopo. And then the issue of the cyclical problems that we all know. The issue, we talked about the issue of resilience. How do our water infrastructure have to be resilient? Have to proper planning, proper design. The issues of the drought cycle, and specifically, this is a classic example where you have to have that as a water board and to understand, but also as an institution to understand how do you design, how do you plan to make sure that your infrastructure is resilient, that your water security and water availability over a period of time that's then to be available. And not only for the drought cycles, but for the wet cycles, the issue of high turbidity, the issue of treatment cost, etc., that goes with it, but also the other aspect where you have a water demand that exceeds supply. And this is just an example in terms of the water allocation or the water use per sector, with a predominant agriculture, but also there's a high significance of the mining sector within this particular province, what I've indicated. This is just an indication of the major schemes that we have for district municipality, to give you an orientation, what I've said earlier on, and that we have 247 reservoirs, pipeline of 1,215 kilometers, and pump stations 46. So these are the things that you referred to earlier on, Chris, in terms of the issues of the capabilities of the state, and that you have that within your organization to make sure that you operation and maintenance. This is the bulk or the core of the business that you have to look in terms of providing the resource to the client, to the customer. And here is where also your professionalism comes in. If I can just, by way of indication, to demonstrate to you the importance of infrastructure investment into a country. South Africa has spent from 1998 to 2022 500 billion rand on water infrastructure. And I repeat, 500 billion that we have invested, whereas 92% of this investment was by the public sector and 8% by the private sector. So you can see the magnanimity of the issues of infrastructure and its central role in socio-economic development. And this is the kind of aspect that we need to do, and that we need to continue with this kind of infrastructure, and then specifically not to run our infrastructure down into the ground, and then we're sitting with major catastrophes or problems. And the main aspect is the focus of O&M and where all the institutions should be. The total design capacity is 257.5 megaliters per day that we have, and on an average water supply of 242 megaliters per day. It's not small in terms of, but it's not as big, for instance, as what your Rand waters are. And these are just the capacity and the ownership, and we also do the work on behalf of the Department of Water and Sanitation. Now, what do we in terms of this drive and this change catalyst that we need to go forward, and what we need to be, and how do we make sure that these are achieved? We need to be capable, ethical in the development state. Economic transformation, job creation is key. You need to have the skills and the education. You need to look sure that there's reliable and quality basic services that are there. And the main issue that we need to look is we still have an apartheid kind of spatial dynamics in the country, and there's not been moved in terms of that with regard to spatial integration, human settlements, and the role of government. Water security is becoming increasingly much more critical, and it's been ranked under the World Economic Forum is under the top 5 risks in the world, and therefore the issue of safe drinking water is becoming more and more a challenge. The issues that are important, that government have the tools that are there in terms of to make sure that we deliver, but there's also the challenge and the skills. The National Development Plan we're all aware of, the National Water and Sanitation Master Plans, the National Infrastructure Plans, etc. But how do we make sure that this happens? Therefore, you need viable institutions. You need ethical institutions. You need good governance of these institutions. We need to protect our infrastructure, and specifically the issues of water loss, theft, and vandalism. That is one of the aspects that I think should be also a major aspect that CESA also, and with all the others, is that why do we vandalize our infrastructure in South Africa? The basics that must deliver those services. And then the 4th industrial revolution, how do you digitize? You need to be relevant within the modern world. Our infrastructure should function, and it should be there at the cutting edge. The challenges and the change that needed, we have an added burden that has been put onto us, is the load shedding, how to manage it, how to make sure that the integrity of your infrastructure is protected due to this load shedding. The main issue is also on the impact on your pumps and also in terms of your valves, but also the issue of water hammering is becoming a major aspect. And that increases in terms of your budget. The issues of asset management comes into being, and how do you then look after an aging infrastructure? We look at it properly planned, and how do we look in terms of the issues that are going with it? The major aspect that I can say to you from a perspective of Lepelle when I hear is about the issues of the fly-by-night companies, and specifically in the consulting in industry. And then we need to be honest, and we need to be sure about it. And that has created a major issue with regard to procurement here in this organization. The reputation of a state institution such as Lepelle, the reputation of the consulting engineering industry, the quality of work, and also project management, and that is having the issues of financial loss, fraud, and corruption. There's many issues with regard to the SIU and the Hawks with that. So that is one of the things within the industry that one have to talk about. How do we look in terms of the ethical behavior, professional behavior, misrepresentation, fraudulent documents, and not responsibility and accountability? And that leads within the whole supply chain aspects that Mr. Dambashi was talking about also. And that affects your operations. It affects that Umama Gogo cannot get water. And then the other things with regard to the infrastructure. Just give me about 3 more minutes, ma'am, and then I will be complete. The top priorities in the water space in terms of solutions is that how do we reconfigure the institutions? How do we make sure that water service authority municipalities do their job? That is the biggest challenge that we face as water service authorities, water services providers. The aspects of strategic asset management, the engineering services of critical infrastructure. I've talked about the financial viability and capacity of staff. I'm not going to repeat it. And how do we make sure that we can account to each and everyone in the public about the public money that we utilize and where do we utilize it? And then also, how do we move forward from a proposed execution? Organizational resilience. The test of organizational resilience will measure what it stands for in the times of challenge. And this challenge is now that where we have the challenges in terms of the constraints within the fiscus, needs effective leadership, needs an effective organizational objective to make sure that is uninterrupted service to the communities of the country. Financial performance. How do we make sure our institutions are viable? Infrastructure refurbishment. Make sure that our infrastructure, our projects are executed within time, within budget, within scope and quality. And then the optimization of the project, of the product, the production related infrastructure, optimization of our infrastructure. I've talked about water security and supply. I'm not going to go forward. I'm not going to talk about the natural environment. I'm not going to take further about SENS 241 because that is what is critical. And how do we empower our communities? And the anticipated result is to strengthen the capacity and the capabilities of the entities and the institution in the provinces, specifically Limpopo and Northwest, where we need this and where we need to strengthen in the capacity that we can attract capable and well-experienced staff to execute and to harness and to build the new generation. Operational efficiencies I've talked about, financial viabilities, and that we need to have the issues of transformation and improved governance, and then the ICT aspects that are there. I just wanted to close off, Chair, just by showing you in terms of the pictures, in terms of what we do and what we face on a daily basis in terms of Lapele. But we have a committed team. We need more to deal with, and CESA as a partner in terms of these particular aspects, where we, from an engineering perspective, that we need, and that we look at this going forward, and that we are together. We are together into this, and just by way of saying that we are now overhauling in terms of the panels of engineers and contractors in this province, so that we can get the best year. And we also now, in view of the fact that we have all of these challenges, that we have ethical, professional, and well-experienced panel of engineers and contractors within this province to do the work and to make sure that we increase the access of basic services. And on that note, Madam Program Director, I just want to say thanks. If there are other specific aspects with regard to the types of projects and the types of work that we are doing, I can further in terms of the Q&A session on that. But for me to close is that we're working currently on the Nandoni and Sami pipeline, the most famous Nandoni and Sami pipeline that we're finishing off now. By the end of this month, we're working on the Ebenezer Olifants project. It's a 4.5 billion rand project to make sure that we water security to Polokwane. There is also the Burgersfort wastewater projects, and then also the other further planning that we're going to have for the Waterberg in terms of water supply from the Wib Dam up to Mokopane, Mahalakwena, and all the mines. and then also the water supply in terms of the planning stages to Lapalale in the Waterberg district. But that is not all. It's not an exhaustive list, Chair and also Program Director, but it's an honor and a pleasure for me to present to you today in terms of the aspects. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Ratus. I think the pleasure and honor is ours to have you here on this platform and to hear, particularly following the stories that we've heard regarding the Giyani project, that there has been a turnaround at the Limpopo water supply. And also, particularly in a water scarce country such as ours, that something is being done to secure our water sources, given that although there has been significant investments that I have noted in developing economies, we are still seeing these investments directed towards energy when there is still a large backlog in terms of both energy, but also water, transport, and other infrastructure. And that's something that we need to continue to protect, but also to protect our infrastructure, existing infrastructure, so that we don't, as you said, run it to the ground, so that we don't have to invest in capital projects instead of maintaining what we have. So there lies the importance of asset management and the need to protect the infrastructure that we had. But a crucial message today, an important message, and thank you for sparing your time. One last point, the need to protect our institutions, because again, that also attracts investments into the infrastructure that we have. But again, a lovely, important presentation from you, Dr. Ratus. I am quickly going to jump onto our next speaker because we are really running out of time. We have Mr. Sfiso Diko, who is the Chief Director of Building and Infrastructure from the Northwest Department of Public Works and Roads. He is currently an Executive Director, Chief Director of the Department of Public Works. He's an engineer with years of experience in civil engineering and project management. Sfiso obtained his master building degree from the University of Witwatersrand. He holds a Bachelor of Technology degree in civil engineering from the Cape Peninsula University of Technology, and he is a registered professional engineering technologist with the Engineering Council of South Africa, and he's also an MBA candidate. So we know that he's very time constrained, and we are lucky to have him here today. I'm not sure if you can hear me, Mr. Diko, but the floor is yours.
Thank you, Program Director, and thank you to all the colleagues. Can we take down the presentation of the previous speaker so that I'm able to also share?
Can I ask Dr. Ratus to take down his presentation? I think we're seeing.
Yes, I think
I've taken it down. Thank you.
All right, fantastic. Thank you.
Thank you, the Program Director. Can you see my presentation?
Yes, we can.
Thank you. Thanks a lot. Yes, as you have introduced me, my name is Sfiso Diko from the Department of Public Works in the Northwest Province. I think I will be brief. In actual fact, I should be done within 13 to 15 minutes. The presentation is not going to be long. I will just start on the challenges first that we are facing as a province and also as a country, and then go straight to how can we resolve them. And then I go to the points that you have requested me to present, which is the professionalization of the public sector, and also comment on the professionalization of the private sector, and then go to the roles and the opportunities that the province have to the consulting engineers, and then I will end them. So I think basically, Program Director, the issue that the challenge that we are having as a province, which is a rural province, is an issue of the very high unemployment. And also we have got the issue of the declining fiscal or budget from government. or from our treasuries, which is a countrywide issue. And then we have also the issue of the high levels of corruption. And we have also the issue of the dilapidating infrastructure in the province. And we also have the issue of insufficient skills and knowledge personnel in this built environment that we are living in. And according to our mandate as public works, we are fully aware that we are mandated to develop and maintain the infrastructure of the province. And this mandate is in line with what is supposed to develop the economy of this country, which is the Republic of South Africa. Because there are sectors that are earmarked or maybe they are very crucial in developing the economy of South Africa. We look upon the issue of agriculture, infrastructure delivery, energy, technology, and manufacturing. So those are the sectors that are supposed to do best in ensuring that there is a development in the economy. However, to achieve that, then we need first to professionalize the public sector. And when you professionalize the public sector, what is required, which is very important, is the all government spheres, for example, nationally, provincially, and municipalities, which is our local government, to employ the ethical and the authentic personnel or people. And why we are saying that, because that is exactly what is giving a problem. And I like it because even the previous speakers have highlighted this issue of ethics. I think the issue that we have as a South Africa, or maybe as public sector as a whole, is to have the people that are not ethical. And the issue of ethics, it starts from a home, in actual fact, from the early childhood, and then you come to the companies or institution that you work into. And the reason why maybe some of the leaders have got the issue of the ethics is because most of the time they are not authentic and they are not self-aware of themselves. Because if you are not self-aware of yourself, then it's very difficult to have values, which is something that maybe can be common in either a public sector or private sector. If you are not self-aware of yourself, then you tend to be persuaded easily to any direction. That is why you find out if there is a high level of corruptions and in supply chains, things are not going well, decisions that are taken are skewed. Because when we are easily persuaded, we get to a point whereby we even elevate some of the politicians which come with the different mandate or vision, which is only to benefit themselves, but not the public. And then we lose the focus of us being professional. And then we go to their standard and be guided in any direction by those who are also pushing their career as leaders in the political space, but not taking our position because not authentic of ourselves. Then this is where the issue of values comes. And then the second issue that we also have is the issue of employing the unqualified, less experienced, and not knowledgeable personnel in the positions of authority, like the one of infrastructure delivery, which is happening mostly in the municipalities and so forth. And there is nobody which can say is doesn't maybe support the issue of cadre deployment and so forth. But when it happens, it needs to happen where you need to employ the people who are knowledgeable and qualified for the position that they are in, so that we can see the derivative of a value to the positions that they are on. And then if that happens, then I think the professionalism in the public sector will happen. But I think another issue which I should also put, if we need to add more on the professionalism of the public sector, is on the point of also ensuring that public sector have got systems and also technologies in place, so that those who are qualified and competent enough to do the works, they are able to utilize those technologies under this digital world, and also be able to do the work effectively and efficiently. The reason why this becomes important to me when you professionalize the public sector is because if you are government and you don't have the correct systems, and then you don't have also the right technologies, one consultant maybe who might come with its own mandate or its own intention, you might maybe say, go and design this road, or go and plan and design this typical road. And then if on the road you have got maybe some few potholes or some few defects, but the other areas might be also be intact and be okay. And then the consultant, because they want to increase or maximize their fees, and come and say, our opinion as a consultant, we need you to just reconstruct the whole road. And the issue is, while we are living upon this constrained government budget, then if a consultant or a professional come with those type of opinions, which are unethical, most probably, to say they want to just maximize their fees, and then you start damaging the infrastructure that is still in good condition, because you don't have system, you don't have the skills personnel, you don't have the right technologies to detect if this opinion might be not right or not correct, then you might agree on to it. And then you take a lot of money, go and reconstruct. Maybe you are supposed to reconstruct 1 kilometer as opposed to the 20 kilometers that someone is saying just do it. So public sector requires to have those type of systems and those types of skills in order to do better as a collaboration with the private sector. And then when it comes to the professionalization of the private sector, I think I have got not much a contribution on a professionalization of the private sector, because the private sector have got its own gurus and experts on the field. However, what is important also is that the people, when there are unethical conducts happening between public sector and the private sector, the two parties are involved. So there is a commonality of the issues of an unethical conduct, which need to be taken out between the two sectors. And also public sector need to have the professionals, need to have in actual fact individuals that can uphold the professionalism. And also, since we know if we are living under this economic condition, we need a consulting engineers or private sector that comes up with the innovations and the technologies when they are doing the infrastructure project or implementing the infrastructure project in government. Simply because if we don't come up with the innovation, it means we will always do less because of the financial constraints. But if there are innovations, we can maximize the little that we have using those innovations. For example, now, you can't go to any area if, let's say, you need to construct a road and then you don't have to pay for borrow pits, which before we were just paying the royalties, but now the traditional council, they even charge government in cubic the materials, and they put the rates in cubic meters and so forth. So now we need to pay the exorbitant amounts on the. So it means we need to have innovations that can come up with the alternative materials And we understand if how also expensive is also the bituminous materials and so forth. So innovations from the private sector to assist the public sector is also very much paramount to us in order to ensure that we provide the much needed infrastructure in the province of the Northwest. And then the roles and opportunities in the consulting engineers. Looking upon the province that I am, is that the Northwest province is one of the rural area, is classified as rural actually by its location and so forth. And then now, but it has got a very strategic infrastructures that connect the different neighboring countries, provinces, such as Free State, Northern Cape, and so Limpopo, and so forth. So this infrastructure, it needs actually the consultants that can be able to plan, design, and implement going forward, because government most time tends to outsource this because of the challenges that I alluded before, which are linked to the issue of the insufficient skills and so forth. So now the opportunity that is there, this infrastructure that is in the province, we have got about 19,783 kilometers of road network in the province, of which about 14,700 is unpaved, which is the gravel road, and then over 5,000 is the paved road. And these categories of of classification on our infrastructure is that the one that is unpaved, it has got the opportunity that requires it to be upgraded. However, not all according to the REMS board, but we know if there are strategic infrastructure there, more especially in Dr. Rutse Party, there are over 6,000 kilometers of gravel road that is there, and is followed by Bojanala and Ngakamotirimola and Ngakamotirimolema, and lastly the one in Dr. KK. All of them, there is a demand for it to be upgraded, which is the opportunity to the private sector. And then on the side of the paved infrastructure, I think we have got a lot of roads that need to be rehabilitated, and some need some reseals and so forth, but the majority requires the rehabilitation. But also the constraint that is there is the issue of funding, which we are still discussing also with the mines and also the treasury to increase also the allocations, so that we are sure if we can respond to the demand of our people. And also another opportunity that we have as Northwest is that there is a very high demand of office accommodations. There is a need for schools because we are in the rural province, and there is a need for libraries, clinics, and so forth, which requires the consultants that are coming with innovations in order to explore in this opportunity, working together in collaboration between the private sector and the public sector. Then another issue, I think, we have the issue of insufficient technical capacity in the province, which we need also that collaboration between the two sectors so that we take the issues forward. So I think in order for us to ensure that things are getting better and we do good and we try to stop whatever the unethical conducts and so forth, we need to have this collaboration between the private sector and the public sector. I think another thing that I need to raise, when we employ as a province the consulting engineers services, so we do that using the database. And in the next 2 weeks, the database for consultants will be on advert. So we would like all of the capable consultants who are interested in making the Northwest better to bid for that. And also all the negatives and the problems that we had before, we need to fight it together, because we are the professionals now or today, and we will be judged by what we have done today. So we need to work together to ensure that we deliver the infrastructure so that we build the economy together, not to let the state to collapse under our hands. I thank you. Thank you, Kiam.
Thank you for this important message, Mr. Diko. It is crucial for us to professionalize both the public and private sector as an accountability measure between the two sectors, because like you mentioned, if your systems are in place, the consulting engineer isn't able to pull the wool over the eyes of the public sector, which brings into question something that has been raised, a theme that has been raised throughout this entire webinar, the question of ethics, the question of fixing our systems in order to make procurement workable in our industry. We have run out of time. Our time was until 1 o'clock, but we do have a question in the chat box, and I'm going to implore you to just ask. Oh, there is 2 more questions. There's 2 more questions. There is a question from Lucky, and I'm not sure if Chris is still on the call, but if one of our panelists can maybe still take it briefly. The question says, hi Chris, what is your take on how to empower a new engineering consulting firm with more than a decade experience from director to staff? How can that be integrated when you respond to opportunities? Most opportunities will cater for entity experience. And I think maybe one of our clients could perhaps take it, perhaps yourself, Mr. Diko, or Dr. Retis. As clients, can you take this question?
Sorry, can you repeat the question?
I got the question.
Oh,
Did you get the question? Okay. Thanks, Dr. Retis.
Yes, one of the aspects is that what I referred to earlier on is that we need consulting engineering firms with the capabilities and the qualities and also with the necessary experience in terms of the projects. And this is the problem that we are facing, that there's not enough quality engineering or the kind of firms that we need, particularly within Limpopo, where I'm working, that really come and market themselves, that be part of the panels, be part of the work that what we have. The project profile from companies is very critical, that we have, and the capabilities of the staff within those particular companies are very critical. So that is also part and parcel of it, that where you can and where you can build, and we have the experience. Specifically, what we're looking at is that in our case is experienced companies, that they are part of the solution here, and not that we have the perpetual problems that we're having, that where we have the fly-by-nights, and that they have really created the bad image of the consulting fraternity. But also where you can further form joint ventures where you can form consortiums, which can play the minor role to further develop you, then that by itself is one of the aspects, and that we all look for excellence, we all look for quality, we all look for good companies that we can work with. And this is one of the areas that I can say that and we give advice to what I've just said. But the main issue is about ethical. Please don't misrepresent, don't overstate, and then the issues of the professional behavior, because that can lead to a lot of damage to your company, where we have to restrict you and all of those kind of things, and then that is not one of the aspects of the route that we're going to go. And also to make sure that you're part of the panels, that what I referred to and what Sifiso was referring to. Be on those panels, make sure that you have the necessary skills that what we are looking for, and that we then on a rotational basis, and that we can utilize you, and that you have the necessary skills that what we are looking for. And because it is now that the aspects of the infrastructure development is taking shape, and that we need to make sure that we deliver in terms of the infrastructure for South Africa. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Reuters. And I almost directed the next question towards yourself, being from a water entity. But I think I should end this with, given that this is a Northwest and Limpopo presidential visit, maybe I should rather direct it towards one of the branch chairpersons. And this question is from, I hope I'm pronouncing this correctly, Pian Chiteku, and he says, or she says that a lot of projects have been put on hold due to water allocation complications. Is there an immediate solution to speedily unlock this so that projects can be implemented on time? Mr. Mutavatsindi or Mr. Dandashu, would you care to take this one? For either of your provinces.
I would like to comment a bit, but I think if I had the question well, is talking about if there is a water restrictions. Am I correct? If the project allocation complications is it the one that to unlock these?
Can be unlocked, yes.
Yes, I think for us in this province, this site, we work hand in hand with LNW, which is Mr. Reuters is the CEO, and I am not sure about that because there are a lot of projects that are flowing from LNW's perspective where we can help, and we've got collaborations. We do a few projects with them, and from Muteo Consulting side. So I am not sure if the question was directed for the particular province, probably for Northwest, but in Limpopo we've got things rolling so far.
Okay, thank you so much. I think what we will do is also perhaps ask the panelists to maybe offer a formal response, and we can send it through to everybody who was present on this webinar. Somebody has requested that we make the presentations available, which they will be. And also they have given access to the webinar on CTV, CESA's YouTube channel, in which the link has been provided in the chat. But lastly, just as a closing from myself, in the absence of any further questions, I think the message is clear from a training perspective: train less and you get less, because the engineering industry excellence is dependent on us continuously developing ourselves professionally, and that South Africa is a great place for lawmaking, but also that we have a human factor that we need to deal with that is affecting the implementation and the impact on infrastructure delivery. And a key theme that went across all of the speakers, or that stemmed from all of the speakers, was the issue of ethics. And if that can be cleared, I think that would be crucial to unlocking some of the infrastructure issues that we have. There was the importance of transparency, as mentioned by one of the speakers, and the importance of arriving at solutions to fix our infrastructure issues. Dr. Reuters touched on the importance of not running our infrastructure to the ground, the importance of, again, ethics, creating viable institutions so that we are able to attract investment into these institutions for the delivery of infrastructure. And last but not least, the professionalization of both the public and private sectors, so that they hold both they hold each other accountable. And none of this obviously can be achieved without collaboration between both the public and private sector, but also between member firms, so that those that do lack the skills are able to attain the skills from member firms that do have. So collaboration is the key theme, and that's the message from CESA's webinar from both the Northwest and Limpopo provinces. Last but not least, thank you to CESA for hosting this event. Thank you very much to all of the panelists, and thank you for being with us this morning and afternoon. Can we close it, please?